Chapter 4. Put me down. I mean it, Terry. Terry let out a fiendish laugh. Roxy kicked her legs hard, trying to squirm free, but Terry was too strong for her. He carried her over the pebbly beach to the shore. Then he started swinging her over the edge of the water, threatening to toss her in. Put me down, Roxy squealed, laughing. Instead, Terry began to run, raising his knees high into the water. Whoa, he cried out as he slipped on the smooth, round rocks under his feet. About 10 feet out, the rocks gave way to soft sand. Terry kept running until the low waves were at his waist. Put me down, Terry, I mean it, Roxy shrieked. Okay. With a devilish grin, he let go of her. Roxy hit the water hard. Terry dived under. They both came up, sputtering and laughing. It's freezing, Roxy cried. She ducked under again, came up quickly, and spit a stream of water into his face. Hey, Terry protested, and splashed waves of water over her with both hands. Okay, I give, Roxy cried, raising her hands in surrender. She swung an arm around his broad shoulder and let him carry them further out. There are some advantages to being short and scrawny, she told herself. The bright sun high overhead made the water sparkle like gold. The breeze was soft and cool. Behind them, the beach was crowded with sunbathers. Several teenagers had started a loud, energetic volleyball game. Near the dock, some kids were trying to windsurf, even though the breeze was so light. Her arm slid off Terry, and she swam beside him, taking long strokes to keep up. His swimming always made her laugh. He was so big and uncoordinated. What's so funny? He demanded, rolling onto his back to face her. I swim like a fish. More like a beached whale, Roxy exclaimed. He reached out and playfully ducked her head under the water. They swam a short while longer, then wrestled and splashed their way back to the beach. Grabbing a towel, Roxy dropped onto the red and white blanket they had spread on the beach near the dock. She ran the towel over her brown hair, then draped it over her shoulders. Terry stood beside her, dripping water. He pushed back his red, curly hair as he studied the volleyball game down the beach. Nice day, huh? Roxy asked, beaming up at him. She felt very happy. Terry had been moody lately, probably because he had to spend the summer working at his father's fish store, and he really didn't like the beach. But today they were having such a good time. The first really good day since school had let out 2 weeks before. Want to get in the game? Terry asked, swatting a fly on his freckled shoulder. Well, Roxy hesitated. She didn't like volleyball. When she played up close, she was too short to hit the ball over the net. Come on, let's play, Terry urged, reaching down to tug her to her feet. She allowed him to pull her up, then gasped, Hey, wait! She pulled her hand free and stared hard at the dock. Yes! The tall, beautiful blonde in the white bikini was Ursula. She was standing at the end of the dock, talking to Lee. I can't let her win the bet. The thought flashed through Roxy's mind, and before she even realized it, she had left Terry behind and was running as fast as she could over the pebbly beach to the dock. Hi, guys! Hi! Roxy shouted, her feet slapping the damp wooden boards. Ursula and Lee turned toward her, startled expressions on their faces. Roxy, Ursula cried without enthusiasm. What's up? Hi, Roxy cried breathlessly, grinning at Lee. Nice day, huh? Lee nodded. He wore a faded blue muscle shirt and baggy denim cutoffs. His dark hair tumbled out from beneath his shark's cap. He looks awesome, Roxy thought. So tanned and handsome. I can't let Ursula win this one, I really can't. But do I stand a chance? He barely says a word to me. The yellow cigarette boat bobbed beside the dock. Lee and I were just going to take her out, Ursula commented, seeing Roxy's eyes on the boat. She turned to Lee. No jokes this time, right? Maybe, he replied, his dark eyes lighting up as he gazed back at Ursula. Ursula flashed Roxy a knowing smile. A victory smile, Roxy thought bitterly, as if Ursula was already claiming that she had won. For a brief moment, Roxy pictured herself pushing her friend off the dock, then climbing into the boat with Lee. Terry's calls interrupted her fantasy. Hey, what's up? They all turned to see him lumbering over the dock, pulling up his baggy red and blue swim trunks as he ran. Do you know Terry? Ursula asked Lee. Roxy's boyfriend? Roxy clenched her teeth hard. Ursula added that deliberately, she knew. She told Lee that Terry was my boyfriend just to make sure I don't stand a chance with our bet. Terry stepped up beside Roxy and put his arm around her shoulders. Hi, guys, he said cheerily. Terry acts like he owns me, Roxy thought bitterly. Like I'm his puppy dog or something. She stepped sideways to get out from under his heavy arm. The four of them talked for a short while, mostly about what they were doing that summer. Roxy kept smiling at Lee. but he didn't seem to notice her at all. Beneath his shark's cap, his dark eye stayed on Ursula. Lee and I were going for a ride, Ursula said, motioning to the bobbing yellow boat. Her lips formed a pout. But there isn't room for 4? Sorry, Lee shrugged. He seemed eager to get into the boat. It's all over, Roxy thought glumly. I've lost already. Maybe we could all do something tonight, she suggested desperately. You know, a picnic on the beach or something? Ursula had a strange, tight grin on her face. She knew what was on Roxy's mind. Lee shook his head, frowning. Can't, he said softly. I have to go to a stupid charity thing at the club with my parents tonight. Too bad, Roxy murmured, trying not to appear as disappointed as she felt. How about tomorrow night? She blurted out. I don't know, Lee replied, gazing at Ursula. I'm not too good at planning ahead. Roxy felt embarrassed. She knew she was being too eager, too obvious. She could feel Terry's eyes on her. She stepped back as Lee lowered himself into the boat, then helped Ursula down. Roxy saw his hands remain on Ursula's slender, pale shoulders a little longer than they needed to. No, Roxy thought angrily. No, no, no. She can't win that easily. I won't let her. I really won't. Ursula smiled up at Roxy and waved. Roxy turned and began making her way back to the blanket, thinking furiously. Terry hurried to catch up to her, his bare feet slapping the wooden planks. What was that about? He called. Roxy heard Lee's boat start up with a roar. She kept walking fast without turning back. Terry caught up with her. Why did you rush over to them like that? He demanded suspiciously. You took off like a shot. I just wanted to say hi to Ursula, Roxy told him. But you didn't even look at Ursula, Terry replied, his eyes searching her face. Oh, right. She really wasn't listening to Terry. Roxy suddenly had an idea. It popped into her mind. An idea that would win the bet for her. What are you smiling about? Terry demanded, as they dropped back onto the blanket. Just smiling, Roxy replied, lost in her scheming thoughts. It was a sneaky trick, a dangerous trick. Really unfair and underhanded. She knew she had to do it. Chapter 5. Roxy pulled her car to the curb and cut the lights. She waited for her eyes to adjust to the darkness. There aren't any streetlights on Seabreeze, she realized. She took a deep breath and climbed out of the car. Glancing up, she saw that there wasn't even any moonlight to light her way. Low, dark clouds blanketed the sky. The clouds had rolled in off the sound in the late afternoon. Just before dinner time, it had rained for about 20 minutes. Then the rain stopped abruptly, leaving the air hot and sticky. Roxy's sneakers crunched on a gravelly pavement as she gazed up at the house. It was completely dark, not even a porch light. The house hovered heavily at the top of the sloping front lawn, like a big creature waiting for its prey. Roxy stopped at the bottom of the gravel driveway and leaned against a mailbox on its pole, struggling to read a number. I don't want to break into the wrong house, she thought, wishing her heart wasn't thudding so hard in her chest. The number on the box was 133. That was Lee's number. Roxy had memorized it from the file Ursula had on her desk in the office at school. Well, here I am, she thought wistfully. She gazed up at the large, dark-shingled house again. Here I am, about to break into Lee's house. At least he told the truth about having to go out with his parents tonight. The dark windows showed there was no one home. Roxy's plan was simple. She was going to enter Lee's house, go up to his room, find the shark's cap, and take it. The cap had to be there, she knew. Lee's parents would never let him wear it to a charity function at the club. The next day, Roxy planned to wear the shark's cap to summer school and parade around it in front of Ursula. She planned to tell Ursula that she met Lee after the charity thing, that she went back to his room with him, and he gave her the cap. As she slowly made her way up the gravel driveway, Roxy gripped the automatic flash camera she had strapped around her neck. I'll take a few pictures of Lee's room, she had decided. The idea had made her laugh out loud. She pictured the jealous look on Ursula's face when Roxy showed her the photos, and proved to Ursula that she had been in Lee's room. She'll be green. Green, Roxy thought gleefully. And for once, I'll be the winner. I'll win the bet. I'll win the $50, and Ursula will have to tutor me in French for the rest of the summer. Sure, it's a cheat, Roxy knew. Sure, it's unfair. But so what? Is it fair that Ursula is so tall and beautiful? Is it fair that she has the perfect blonde hair and those amazing blue eyes? No, not fair. She swallowed hard, gazing up at the house, black against the blue-black sky. Her sneakers crunched quietly over the gravel driveway. As she passed underneath it, an old sycamore tree shivered down cold drops of water on her head and shoulders. Roxy stopped at the end of the front walk. A small concrete stoop led to the wooden front door. I know Ursula won't believe me, Roxy thought, staring hard at the closed door. I know she'll go running to Lee and ask if my story is true. And of course, Lee will deny it. But then I'll tell Ursula he's lying. I'll say, Ursula, Lee won't admit he was with me and gave me his cap, because he wants to go out with you, but pictures don't lie. How would I get pictures of his room unless I was there with him? And then Ursula will have to believe me, and she'll have to admit that I finally won a bet. Roxy had it all worked out. She'd been thinking about nothing else all afternoon and evening. Did she feel bad about cheating against Ursula? No, she realized, not at all. Ursula was the most competitive person in the world. Ursula would do anything to win, so why shouldn't Roxy? She felt a shiver down her back as she climbed the 3 steps onto the front stoop. A long-handled wooden push-broom leaned against the door frame. Roxy nearly knocked it over as she reached for the door handle with a trembling hand. She caught the broom as it toppled back and nearly fell off the stoop with it. "Calm down," she scolded herself, setting the broom back in place. "There's no one around. This is going to be easy." Easy? Was she really breaking into someone's house? She turned the doorknob and pushed. The front door was locked. She tried it again. No. Locked. The wind picked up. Cold drops of water rained down on her from the shuddering trees. Car headlights rolled over the lawn, making the wet grass glisten. Roxy leaped off the stoop and ducked behind a low evergreen shrub. The car passed by slowly, rock music blaring out of its open windows. Roxy waited behind the shrub until the music faded away. Then she stood up, her knees trembling. "Let's get this over with," she muttered to herself, "before I have a heart attack." Maybe the back door isn't locked, she thought. She jogged to the driveway, then headed toward the back of the house. The garage door was open, revealing only blackness inside. Roxy imagined a snarling black dog leaping out of the garage, lunging at her, knocking her down, its drooling jaws clamping around her throat. I have too much imagination, she told herself. Too much imagination is not helpful when you are about to break into a dark house. She stopped when a side door suddenly appeared out of the blue shadows. She stepped closer. A concrete block led up to a torn screen door, which enclosed a wooden door behind it. The wind fluttered the trees again. They all whispered at once, as if telling her to go away. The low sky grew even blacker. Roxy stepped onto the concrete block and pulled open the screen door. It creaked loudly as it opened. Roxy's hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob. She realized she was holding her breath. She let it all out in a long whoosh. The doorknob turned. She pushed the door in easily. Darkness greeted her on the other side. Roxy stepped quickly into it and pushed the door shut behind her. "I'm in," she thought, her heart racing. "I'm in the house." She stared hard into the blackness, struggling to see where she was. "I'm in Lee's house. I'm really doing this." She reached out and swallowed hard as her hand touched something soft and stringy and damp. Hair. Someone's hair. "Oh." A low moan escaped Roxy's throat. Her hand grasped the hair. Long hair. Girl's hair. Someone is here in the darkness with me, Roxy realized, pulling her hand back in terror. Someone is here. Someone cold and dead. Chapter 6. Roxy's hand slapped the wall. She fumbled for a light switch. She knew she shouldn't turn on any lights, but she had no choice now. She had felt the cold, slimy hair. There was a body here beside her, still and silent. "Oh." Another low moan escaped her throat, a sound she had never made before. Her hand rubbed over a light switch. She bumped it on. Gray light flickered over the narrow entryway. She found herself in some sort of back pantry. Roxy turned to the body and gasped. The damp, stringy hair hung from a kitchen mop. She had grabbed the mop head in the darkness. With a loud sigh of relief, she quickly clicked off the light. A narrow hallway led toward the front of the house. Roxy followed it, walking blindly, trailing one hand along the wall to steady herself. The camera bobbing at her chest suddenly felt heavy. She shuddered again, thinking about the gray, stringy mop. Her sneakers scraped on the bare wood floor. She found herself at the front stairs. Resting her hand on the banister, she took a deep breath. "Why didn't I bring a flashlight?" she whispered to herself. "All good burglars carry flashlights, don't they? Roxy, you're just not a pro." She made her way onto the bottom step and peered up the stairs. A skylight at the top allowed a shaft of pale gray light to filter down. The steps were steep, Roxy saw, and narrow. Lee's room has got to be upstairs, she told herself. She hesitated. Her knees felt weak. She could feel the blood pulsing at her temples. Up, she urged herself. She grabs the banister tightly in one hand and pulled herself up the steep creaking stairs. The camera banged into the banister, startling her. She grabbed it with her free hand and climbed the rest of the way to the top. This is going to be worth it, Roxy assured herself, stopping to catch her breath. I can't wait to see the look on Ursula's face when I show her the photos of Lee's bedroom. It was hot and stuffy on the second floor. Despite the coolness of the evening, the house shifted and creaked. Roxy heard every sound. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out of the gray light from the skylight and started down the dark hall. She stopped at the first doorway and peered inside. In the dim light from a window against the back wall, Roxy could make out a bed and dresser. Yes, this is Lee's room. She stepped inside and gazed at the window. His room is at the back, she realized, so if I turn on a light, it won't be seen from the street. Feeling a little relieved, she clicked on the ceiling light. The room came into bright focus. An old-fashioned looking red and blue quilt on the bed. Posters of basketball stars tacked on one wall, competing with two large posters of heavy metal rock groups on the adjoining wall. Roxy's eyes darted over a cluttered bookshelf filled with magazines and books. A model of a yellow cigarette boat, much like Lee's, stood on the cluttered dresser top. A yellow Walkman was tossed on the bed along with several cassettes. The far corner contained a pile of dirty clothes, mostly t-shirts and jeans cutoffs. Where is the cap? She wondered. Where did he toss the shark's cap? Her eyes darted frantically around the small, cluttered bedroom. Where is the cap? She moved to the bookshelf and searched it shelf by shelf. No shark's cap. She bent down and shuffled through the pile of dirty clothes in the corner. No cap. The camera bumped the floor, reminding her that she had brought it. Roxy climbed to her feet. Then she raised the camera to her eye and clicked it on. She waited for the flash indicator to turn green. Then, forcing her hand to stop shaking, she took 4 or 5 flash photos of the room. That part of the mission accomplished, she closed up the camera. Then she returned to her search for the cap. Under the bed? No. Under his pillow? No. She pulled open the closet door. Jeans and sweatshirts and t-shirts all jammed into narrow shelves. And on the top shelf? Roxy reached up with both hands and pulled down the cap. Yes! Her heart pounded as she turned it around to look at it. Atlanta Falcons. Those were the words in silver against the front of the cap. Ah! Roxy let out a frustrated cry. The wrong cap. She tossed it back onto the top shelf. It took 3 tries to get it to stay. When she closed the closet door, she was breathing hard. Where can it be? Where? She searched the desktop, then the desk drawers. Where is it? She was sure Lee wouldn't have taken it to the country club. It's got to be here somewhere, she told herself. She backed up to the doorway. Maybe I can see it better if I get a different view, she thought. Her eye slowly swept the room. It's not on the bed, not under the bed, not in the closet, not on the shelves, not... Oh! She let out a startled cry at the sound. A sound she recognized at once. The sound of the front door opening downstairs. Her heart felt as if it had leaped to her mouth. She couldn't swallow, couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Frozen in the doorway to Lee's room, Roxy heard voices downstairs, and realized she was caught. Chapter 7. In her panic, Roxy remembered to reach up and click off the bedroom light. Then she stood with both hands pressed against the doorframe, holding herself up, fighting back the waves of cold terror that swept over her. She listened. A boy's voice downstairs. Lee? Why was he home so early? Roxy gasped as she heard a girl's angry shout, shrill and high-pitched. She didn't recognize the voice. I've got to get out of here, Roxy told herself. I've got to move. Could she make it down the stairs and out the front door without being seen? She took a step into the dark, narrow hallway and listened hard. Where were they? Were they in the front of the house? In the living room? Could they see her from there? Roxy took another step. The floorboards creaked under her sneaker. She stopped. They'll hear me. She could hear the boy speaking rapidly, angrily. Now she wasn't sure if it was Lee or not. He was speaking too softly to tell. The boy spoke sharply, just above a whisper. Then Roxy heard a short reply from the girl. She couldn't make out the words, but she could tell they were having an argument, a very tense argument. Step by careful step, Roxy made her way to the top of the stairs. Pressing her back against the wall of the stairwell, she peered down. Total darkness downstairs. Why hadn't they turned on a light? Why were they arguing in the dark? The front door stood open just a few feet from the bottom of the stairs. All I have to do, Roxy thought, is run down the stairs and out the door, and I'll be free. Let go of me, the girl shrieked. Roxy heard scuffling, angry curses. Let go, I mean it, the girl cried. Roxy was halfway down the stairs now. She leaned hard against the banister, trying to step lightly, trying to keep the wooden stairs from creaking. Ow! The girl cried out after a loud slap. The boy raised his voice, shouted curses at her. Was it Lee? Roxy couldn't tell. She took another step. The front door was so close, so close. The camera suddenly felt like a 1,000-pound weight against her chest. Her legs felt even heavier. She tried to swallow, but her mouth was as dry as cotton. She was breathing shallowly, noisily. The girl cried out again. Roxy heard a crash. A lamp or vase shattered against the floor. Is he going to hurt her? The terrifying thought exploded into her mind. Is he going to really hurt her? Is he going to kill her? No. No way. Impossible. Not Lee. Not here. Not now. I'm not going to stand in this dark house and listen to a murder, am I? Roxy wondered, gripped with terror. I'm not going to be a witness to a horrible murder just because of a stupid bet, am I? Let me go, the girl shrieked, her voice tight with fear. More scuffling, another crash, the scrape of furniture against the floor. Another slap, another frightened, high-pitched cry. I'm going now, Roxy told herself, staring straight at the open door. I'm going to run down the rest of the stairs, push out the door, and run to my car. I'm going to get away from here. I'm going to get away without being seen. She sucked in air until her lungs were full. Then she grabbed the camera in one hand, let go of the banister, and started to run. Chapter 8. Roxy hurtled down the stairs. She kept her eyes straight ahead, trained on the open front door. Just a few more steps, and I'll be out of here, she told herself. She heard the angry voices in the living room. She heard a cry of surprise. They must have heard me, she realized. She gripped the camera tightly in one hand and pushed herself forward. The front door appeared to tilt and sway in front of her, but she kept her eyes on it, her destination. Down she flew, the last step, the front entryway. 3 more steps to freedom, just 3 more. She had to get past the living room on the right, and then out the front door and into the darkness of the night. A quick glance to the living room. The lights were off. The room was as dark as night. 2 more steps to freedom. Oh! Roxy uttered a sharp cry as the flash went off. An explosion of white light revealed 2 startled faces in the living room. A girl with ringlets of hair piled high on her head. And Lee. Was it Lee? Hey, he called. But Roxy was out the door, running hard down the front lawn, running blindly, breathlessly, reaching for her car keys. The flash of white light stayed in her eyes. She saw the 2 startled faces in her mind as she ran, the frightened girl, the angry boy. Lee. Did he see her as she ran past? Did he recognize her? Was he coming after her? Chapter 9. The next morning, a gray Sunday morning, humid and hot, the ringing telephone on her bed awoke Roxy. She sat up slowly, thinking the ringing was part of a dream. The bed sheets were soaked with sweat. The long t-shirt she had slept in clung damply to her back. She pushed a clump of brown hair back off her forehead, blinked herself awake, and reached for the phone. Hello? She croaked in a sleep-fogged voice. Roxy, it's me, Shauna. Huh? Shauna? What time is it? Roxy squinted hard at her clock radio, but her eyes refused to focus. Almost 9, Shauna told her. Did I wake you? Yeah, Roxy replied. Yuck, it's so hot in here. Thoughts of the night before burst back into her mind. Roxy shivered despite the heat. She saw herself running frantically to her car, pulling out her car key with a trembling hand, flooring the gas pedal, roaring away from Lee's house without daring to look back. Safely home, she had paced back and forth in her room for what seemed like hours. Should she call the police, she had wondered? Was the girl in Lee's house in serious trouble? Several times Roxy had placed her hand on the receiver, had picked it up, had started to dial, but stopped. How do I explain what I was doing in the house, she asked herself. I can't tell the police I broke in. How do I explain how I overheard the argument? She had returned the phone receiver to its place. It was just an argument, she tried telling herself. Nothing serious. No need to call the police. No need to get involved. None of my business. Then why couldn't she get to sleep? Why couldn't she calm down? Why did she keep reliving her desperate race to freedom again and again? What if Lee saw me? Roxy asked herself, all of her muscles tight, her throat choked with fear. What if Lee recognized me? What if he knows I was hiding in his house? So what? She argued with herself. If Lee says anything to you, just deny it. Pretend you don't know what he's talking about. Tell Lee he's crazy. You were nowhere near his house. Yes, Roxy decided. That was the best policy. He couldn't prove she was there. Besides, he probably couldn't see her in that split-second flash of light. No way he could see her. Repeating this to herself again and again, Roxy had finally managed to calm herself. She fell into a restless, dreamless sleep. And now she struggled to wake up as Shauna's shrill voice rattled in her ear. "I'm sorry to wake you," Shauna said, "but did you hear the awful news?" "Huh? Awful news?" A cold shiver ran down Roxy's back. "You didn't hear about Ursula?" Shauna demanded. "No, please," Roxy thought, suddenly frozen in fear. "Not Ursula. It wasn't Ursula fighting with Lee last night. Please, don't let it be Ursula." "Shauna, what happened to Ursula?" Roxy asked in a trembling voice. Chapter 10. "Ursula sprained her back," Shauna reported. Roxy opened her mouth to reply, but no sound came out. Finally, she squeaked, "She what?" "Sprained her back," Shauna said. Still feeling cold all over, Roxy let out a long sigh of relief. "How?" she asked. "She was trying to windsurf with a bunch of kids from school. She was kind of showing off, trying to get the sail up before everyone else. You know Ursula. She was pulling really hard and lost her footing. She fell off the board and twisted her back. We all had to help her get home." Roxy rolled her eyes. She was wide awake now. Her heart was still racing in her chest. "And you woke me up to tell me this tragic news," she demanded sarcastically. "Well, I thought you'd want to know about it," Shauna replied sharply. "Ursula is your best friend after all." Roxy sighed. "Thanks, Shauna. I'll give Ursula a call to see how she's doing. Talk to you later." Roxy hung up the phone and sat very still, waiting for her heartbeats to slow. As she pulled herself out of the damp sheets and climbed to her feet, she felt the cold dread of the night before all over again. "I'm not going to calm down," she realized. "I'm not going to feel normal again until I know what happened to that girl in Lee's house." She pulled on a sleeveless blue t-shirt and a pair of faded denim cutoffs, ran a brush quickly through her hair, and hurried to the kitchen. "Morning!" Her father, in a baggy Hawaiian-style bathing suit, sat at the kitchen table. The Sunday newspaper spread out in front of him. He glanced up from the comics as Roxy entered. He was slender and young-looking, a handsome man with lively brown eyes, the same color as Roxy's, and a full head of wavy brown hair, which he brushed straight back. "Where's Mom?" Roxy asked. "Church," he replied through a mouthful of toast. "At least one person in this family has some decent values." Roxy didn't reply. She picked up the front news section and quickly glanced at all the headlines. Nothing interesting. She walked over to the coffee maker, pulled down a mug from the cabinet, and poured herself a cup of coffee. "It's hot out already," she said softly, glancing at the heavy gray sky outside the kitchen window. Mr. Nelson grunted in reply. Then he put down the comics and gazed at her. "You're drinking coffee. Since when do you like coffee?" "I like it sometimes," Roxy replied, pouring in a lot of milk. She clicked on the kitchen radio and turned the dial until she found the news station. "Please, no loud music this morning," her father begged, raising both hands in a pleading gesture. "I have 2 court cases I have to prepare for today. I need a little peace and quiet this morning." "I just want to hear the news," Roxy told him, sipping the coffee. He narrowed his eyes at her. "News? You? Have you been possessed or something?" "You're not funny," she replied, frowning. She turned up the volume. The announcer was droning on about the weather. Possible thunder showers, hot and humid. Then he started to read the headlines. "Make yourself some breakfast," Mr. Nelson said, picking up the business section. "Don't just drink coffee." "Shh!" Roxy raised a finger to her lips. "I'm listening." "Well, excuse me," her father declared loudly. His face disappeared behind the newspaper. "Police are heading to Hunter's Dunes, where the body of a teenage girl has reportedly been found." Roxy gasped. The white coffee mug slipped from her hand and shattered on the tile floor. Coffee puddled around her bare feet. "Hey!" Mr. Nelson called, startled. "Shh!" Roxy struggled to hear the rest of the report, but her heart was pounding too loudly. The announcer's voice rushed at her ears like thunderous ocean waves. She could catch only disjointed words and phrases. "Beaten. White. 16 or 17. Fully clothed. Blonde. Curly hair. Police just arriving at the scene." Behind her, Roxy was aware that her father was saying something to her, but his words were drowned out by her own horrified thoughts. Lee murdered her, Roxy realized. He murdered her and dropped her body in the dunes. He murdered her, and I was there. Now what? What do I do?